Hello, everybody. Welcome to Weekly Fix, and I am very excited for this episode of the Weekly Fix because we're going to be breaking down the new Star Wars series, The Acolyte. As always, my name is Jacob, and joining me this week, as always, is my good friend Zane. And I think this is going to be such a fun episode because Star Wars is back on our TVs. Now, I know we just had the Bad Batch, but there's something about these live action shows that hit a little bit different. So I'm super excited to break down this one, as I know it's had a very controversial take online. I've seen a lot of people a lot of people not liking it, so it's going to be fun for you all to hear our opinions on the show. But before any of that, Zane, how was your week going?
Man, my weekend was incredible. You guys got to come visit, and that was awesome to get to hang out with you guys. However, today last night I fell under the weather, got a temperature, just felt terrible. Didn't wake up this morning until like 10:30, so just kind of laid around all day, feeling terrible, but I'm feeling a little bit better now, and excited to talk about new Star Wars.
Yes, I am so pumped for this episode. Like I said, it's been a little while since we've had some live action Star Wars on our TV, with the last series being Ahsoka. And like I said, I think you've seen a lot of the same controversial takes on this episode as well. It's been very polarizing, to see some of the stuff we're seeing. A lot of people liking it, a lot of people really hating it. And I think this is the most I have ever seen something be review bombed as bad as it has. Would you agree with that? Or do you think we've had some other things take some real big hits like that?
We've had some other things take some really big hits. Now this one, it's always frustrating because then you get the reverse review bombs, which I have not seen the reverse review bombs from this, like the review
Yes.
praise as
Yeah.
much. Now I was looking at the IMDb ratings right before this, and Acolyte has 28,000 ratings so far. There's only 2 episodes out, and 13,000 of them are a 1
Yeah.
out of 10. That's insane. And we'll get into it, but that's just like, I don't understand quite what's going on here.
Well,
But
like you said,
boy,
it's
some
it's
people
something.
really are upset.
Yeah, and like you said, it's something we're going to get into. But it has really been kind of crazy to see because I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think it is definitely unwarranted hate towards the show, and I don't know who this benefits. When you're talking about all these fans and stuff that are getting on there and giving these poor reviews, when you can tell they're really not actually watching the show and they're just upset about whatever it is. Because if this does bad, that looks bad for Star Wars overall. It could eventually lead to less Star Wars in the future, which is definitely what nobody wants. I would at least think. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But Zane, overall, we watched the first 2 episodes together, which was really fun, and I love being able to do that, and I think it's something we're going to do a lot more in the future. We were able to talk immediately about the episodes after we watched them, and I think we both agreed that the hate was unwarranted. But overall, our spoiler-free part of this podcast, what did you think of the show?
I thought it was definitely on pace to be a right about mid tier of Star Wars live action shows.
Uh,
It definitely didn't strike me as bad as Princess Leia running through the woods. But it definitely wasn't Andor. I'm intrigued by the show, but the pacing feels weird. I told you it felt slow and fast at the same time when we were watching it, and I think that's kind of. I think I'm kind of sitting there. The longer I've sat with it, the more I feel like that. I feel like they really pace the show quickly per episode, but each scene is very slow. Um, and I don't know how else to describe it, but maybe they don't let things sit with it as long as they should. They're really rushing some things, but at the same time, it's like each scene seems like it's just a step lower. Like, you can see the set design is incredibly well done. The character design is also very good. I am intrigued by the story. It does seem to have an interesting scheme behind it, but at the same time, there's just something that's a little bit off for me, and I'm not quite sure what that is.
Yeah, and that's something you had mentioned, and we talked a little bit about trying to figure out what that could be. I didn't necessarily feel that way. I did kind of like the pacing, but now that I have also sat with the episode, I can kind of understand where you're coming from with that, complaint. I don't even necessarily would think you call it a complaint because I think you still really enjoyed it. It's more just like maybe personally a preference. You would have liked to see some things done a little bit differently. One of the things I think you touched on that I think the show really does well, the set design and the character design are really, really good. And we talked about that a whole bunch, just seeing how the characters are dressed. They look like Jedi. This looks and feels like a Star Wars show, which is super important because sometimes that's easy to kind of get away from. And it's funny to say that, but you see stuff like, I know we praise Andor and we talk about how good it is as a Star Wars show, and it's the best Star Wars shows in our opinion, but it doesn't always necessarily even feel like Star Wars, which sometimes can play to its benefit. But I think this show through and through just overall feels like a Star Wars show.
Oh, for sure. It definitely feels like a Star Wars episode or show, clearly. But it does a great job, and it should. With $180 million budget
Yeah,
for 8 episodes, it better look and feel spectacular. Um, Now, I don't know how much you want to go non-spoilers with this, and it's really hard kind of to give a recommendation because we don't know where it goes.
exactly.
As of now, I can't give it like a must watch. If you're a Star Wars fan, I definitely say like go ahead and tune in with us. I think you'll enjoy what you've seen so far. I don't think there's anything world breaking. I don't think there's anything that you'll regret. Like, man, they really are just jacking this up. But if you don't like the world of Star Wars, currently this is not one I would say will get you on board. I would rather say go watch Andor, go watch the original trilogy, something else. And then maybe if you are really liking Star Wars, come back to this and join us.
I think I would agree with that. It's definitely not made it onto my must-watch list. I do think as a Star Wars fan, it has been fun, and it has been refreshing to see, before we get into our spoiler talk, I think the acting, we talked a little bit about this in person, the acting is good. It's not amazing, it's not bad, it's right there in that middle tier, which is exactly where you said the show was as far as Star Wars is concerned. It's a middle tier Star Wars show. So I think if you are a Star Wars fan, I definitely think there's things here you can love and appreciate. But if you're not, I agree with you. I would not say, hey, if you're trying to get into Star Wars, watch The Acolyte. I would not say that. I would say something like watch Andor. And I think actually, the more I've thought about it, I think Andor is such a good entry point for Star Wars for anybody. If you've not watched Star Wars, even the movies, I think you can hop in Andor as your very first Star Wars project and really enjoy it and really fall in love with the world, because it is a fully encapsulated story. It does leave you with a nice little cliffhanger, and it's something you can look forward to in the future. And that's just not quite what this is. Obviously, I think it could get there. I think it has potential with what we've been given in these first 2 episodes, but I agree with you. I think it's a middle of the tier show. I have recommended to a few of my friends that are Star Wars fans that haven't watched it yet. I said, hey, go ahead and give it a chance, because I don't think you're going to hate it. Now, you might disagree with some things, but I think there are some things you can enjoy, which is exactly how I feel like we felt. I think one of the things I want to really praise for the show is the action scenes have been really, really fun to watch for me personally.
Yeah, I think the stylized choreography is very, very fun and something that I've missed. I don't love a Star Wars feeling like they're fighting with the heaviest of broadswords and, it's two unskilled people having just a rage fest. I don't feel like that's ever what Star Wars was or intended to be, which is kind of what I feel like Disney Star Wars had been up until this point. But they really took a good step in the right direction and actually have some very, I would say, martial arts
Mm-hmm.
stylized, maybe even old age Chinese fighting styles in this, and I really, really like it. It's been a lot of fun. It's been unique, and I've enjoyed watching it as well. Um, but we'll see. And now I do not think the acting is good. I think there are good actors in it, but personally, I don't think the acting overall is good. I think there are some bad performances. So far, Yord is one that's holding me back, and then Jackie Lawn, which I'm surprised because Daphne Keene was X-23 in Logan. I
Yes.
expected her performance to be a little bit better. From what I've seen so far, it just seems very, very young. I think the best way to put it. But not terrible, just not good.
Yeah, I used the word okay. I know at first I said good. I think okay is where, like you said, there are some
Yeah.
poor performances. You touched on Yord. I feel like his acting is very robotic, and I'm hoping that's something that does get better as the series goes on. Obviously, I don't think he's been in any major shows or anything like this, which is right in line with what Star Wars does. So I do hope that his acting improves as the series continues. There are a few standouts. I think Master Soul has been very fun to watch. And kind of really encapsulates what a Jedi is in this era. And that's something I also wanted to touch on with this show is if you are somebody that's been wanting more lightsabers, you've been wanting to see more of the Force used, you've been wanting to really get that Jedi Sith feel, I think that is where this show really shines. I feel like we see lightsabers a lot, which is something we have not seen in Star Wars recently. You know, Ahsoka, we finally started to see him again. But even in that show, I feel like this show, if it keeps up at the pace it's at, we're going to see lightsabers more in this show than we probably did in that one, which is really exciting. The amount of times they've used the Force and in the scenarios that they've used the Force have been those times where I'm like, that is exactly how I would envision the Force being used. I know a lot of the time in Star Wars we'll be like, I feel like that situation could have been solved by just using the Force. And in this show, they really do that, which is really fun to see. We touched on the choreography of the fighting. You had mentioned that one of the actors, I forget her name right now in the show and her actual name in real life. But what this show really reminds me of, and I've not watched The Matrix, which is something I need to do. But the fighting styles from the scenes that I've seen of The Matrix, they really kind of remind me of that. You kind of see them falling backwards and using the Force to hold themselves up and, moving really swiftly. That's something that I've really liked about the choreography.
Yeah, no, Carrie Ann Moss, Trinity in the Matrix. Yeah, it definitely it does have kind of a Matrix feel, which the Force allows you to suspend the reality. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's definitely pretty cool. And you definitely need to watch The Matrix. It's amazing how many of my friends have not watched The Matrix. And I think it still holds up to me personally, especially the first one. But man, gotta watch The Matrix.
I know. It's one of those things. I feel like if you're a movie lover and an action fan, it's something you gotta watch. But I'll get to it eventually. But I think as far as non-spoiler reviews, I think that was a really good little take that we gave on it. I think we touched on a lot of things to like, some of the things we didn't like. But if you didn't have anything else to say, I say let's get into this spoiler review.
No, I'm having a really hard time not giving spoilers. And I know there wasn't a ton of spoilers to be given since we don't know much and it's only 2 episodes, but that's really kind of all I can say currently without going more into the show.
Yeah, so let's dive right into the spoilers. Episode 1 was really fun, and I think it did a good job of setting the tone of the show. They told us a lot of what the story is gonna be, which I really appreciate from an episode 1. It didn't keep me guessing the entire episode. It had me thinking about some solutions and some things that all these things, at first, again, guys, we are in the spoiler section. I might preface that real quick before I continue to talk. So if you don't want spoilers, make sure to click off now and come back after you watch the show. But one of the things I was really excited about that they went ahead and gave us was they went ahead and told us that the main character, Soul, or Osha, she has an evil twin sister, May. And that's something I was really happy that they went ahead and told us and didn't keep us guessing, because my initial thoughts of the show was maybe she's being controlled by a Sith Lord, maybe she's not in the right frame of mind. So it was really cool that they just went ahead and clarified for this. No, Osha is good, May is the bad one, and I really like that they just gave us that fine line right then and there.
Yeah, no, that was really good, and I'm on the same lines. If they would have dragged that on, that would have been really frustrating. But they did give the hints immediately with the scar and then not having a scar. So they really wanted you to know, and they gave you a second to try to figure it out, which I know something I enjoy doing is trying to figure out the shows as they're happening. So that's really fun, and I am very intrigued on what is happening. We know that May is out for revenge, on 4 Jedi specifically, that apparently killed her family, maybe potentially, saved Osha but didn't save May, during a fire. And I'm very intrigued on what's going on there. That's one of the things the show is doing well, is it's, you said you're glad that they went ahead and told you the May Osha thing, which I think would have been a bad thing to hold back. But what I think they're doing well is the things that you want to find out. They're giving us a little bit, but they're not giving us everything, because there is some mystery. There is some, hey, what's going on here still? And I really do enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's really fun too, because like I said, they gave us that main part, but like you said, they're giving us stuff to think about still. I remember one of the things, if I remember correctly, in episode 1, they actually, I think, said that May caused the fire. So
Right.
I'm wondering if she is thinking that maybe they used that and they used her as the reason the fire started, when potentially we've kind of had some theories that maybe it was the Jedi that caused the fire, and maybe they are the reasons that this entire village died and her family is gone, and she's kind of seeking revenge, trying to, avenge her family. But we also saw though in episode 2 that she didn't know that Osha was still alive. So I
Right.
think they're really planting some fun seeds for us to have things to speculate about, but also just giving us a really good story overall.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's going to be the saving grace of this show is that it does seem like they're giving us a story. A lot of the times, maybe there isn't a full encapsulated story within a season of television. I think that's like a bad way to do it. I think there needs to be a complete and total story. There is something that a director, a writer wants to tell, and they tell it for a purpose. And I really feel like they're going to do that on this show. I feel like they're going to give us the start, the journey, and the conclusion in one season, which I think is how they should do this show. I don't think this should be something that's left on a cliffhanger to continue. If there's more to be told, I think it should be something else. I really just love full encapsulated stories, especially when it's a mystery kind of like this that
Well,
could
especially
be told in one sitting.
Yes, and especially with a completely new project. Something with Ahsoka, they has characters that we're familiar with, and one of the most beloved characters in all of Star Wars. That is something that we do want to be left with a cliffhanger. We do want more of that. But for something like this, where you're trying to gauge if fans are going to like it or not, it is really good just to give us a complete story. And then if there is something to tell, do it in another story or do it another way down the road. One of the things I really like that they're doing with the show is they're doing a really good job of showing the arrogance of the Jedi, which ultimately is what led to their downfall. Even in Episode 3 in Revenge of the Sith, they didn't think there was any possible scenario where they were being betrayed or they were being tricked or anything like that. I think this show is also doing a good job of that. They don't really think that they can be tricked. They're only sending 1 or 2 Jedi on these missions when this is really kind of the start of the downfall of the Jedi, which I'm really excited to start to see some of those storylines like that.
So, so you mentioned going ahead and talking about the prequels, and the Revenge of the Sith and the arrogance of the Jedi, but it is talked about in the Phantom Menace how a Sith has not been seen for hundreds of years. I believe it
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
How do you think they're going to handle this?
So there's been a few things that I've seen. I mean, technically, right now we have seen a little bit of what we suspect is the main Sith. We see them at the end of Episode 1. We see May talking to them, but I think there's a few ways they could handle it because as of right now, May's not a Sith. So if they do want to go that route of just having her be the main villain, and they, either she dies, either she, tries to be forgiven for what she's done. Those are some things that they could do. I've also seen a lot of people say that maybe the people that do encounter the Sith just die. And, maybe this somehow gets brushed under the rug or something like that. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to do it because these are concerns that I had at first as well when they started talking about this show and some of the things they're going to do. So I think that's definitely going to be very important for us diehard Star Wars fans that they do give us a reason as to why some of those lines are in the Phantom Menace.
Okay, okay, yeah, because that is a concern of mine. Is kind of the continuity there, and Yoda should be alive at this point.
Yes,
Well into
he
alive.
is. Yes, he is one of the 3 Grandmasters of the Jedi. The other 2, I believe that actually there's 2 left right now in this timeline. It's Yoda and I forget what the other one's name is. One of them has recently died, so
Oh,
he is
okay.
definitely in his prime as a Grandmaster of the Jedi right now.
Sweet. Do you think we'll see him?
No, I do not. I don't think they'll go down that rabbit hole. I think the direction they're wanting to go with this show, knowing the things that the director has said, I think she wants this to be her thing. I think she wants this to be all original characters. So I would be very surprised if we see Yoda. One character I think could slip in there because we've seen little hints of him in the trailers and stuff is Plo Koon. Plo Koon would have actually been alive during this time as well because his species lives for a very long time. And we've seen some of his species in the trailer and actually one that is a Jedi. Obviously, that could just be another one of his species. As we've seen a lot, we're going to see a Wookiee Jedi, which I'm super pumped about. I think that's going to be really fun. So it could end up just being another one of his species, but I think that's the only one that I think there could be a connection to us, fans that really the Jedi and stuff like that. I do not think there's any chance we see Yoda.
Okay, okay. I kind of doubt that we'll see him as well, but whenever somebody is in the timeline and does have as much appeal as a character like that, it's so tempting to just throw him
Yeah.
in there as a little cameo, and see what they're doing.
Yeah, so I don't think that's going to happen, but they could. Like you said, a little cameo might not be bad. Maybe we literally just see him in the temple or something. It could just be a little thing. We see him in the background riding around in his little cart thing like Grogu does. You know, that could be very possible. But I would be shocked. I would definitely be
Okay.
shocked.
Okay. Okay. Now, something that I was curious about for you on this show is, we touched on absolutely liking the action of it, but the mystery for you, are you enjoying what we're getting? What do you think these Jedi did? Now, you said you may be along the same lines of a house fire. Do you think there's anything else that they may have done?
No, I honestly I don't know, and I think again I think this is a way they could also play into the, we haven't seen a Sith in 100 years. I think there could be some evil Jedi. I really do think there could be some
Okay.
battling thought of wanting more power and things like that. I think we kind of saw that a little bit with the one Jedi that drinks the poison and kills himself. I think that was a hint that he had done something wrong and he couldn't live with himself anymore, and so he finally just drank the poison to put it behind him, be done, and move on. So I think that is definitely a storyline that I think would be really fun to play with. I 100% think that this Sith that we have is a dark Jedi or something of that nature. I don't think it's just someone that's been lurking in the shadows for a really long time. I think they have too much of a pull to know these storylines. I think if you think about a Sith like that, having May as your apprentice is like the perfect way to mess with the Jedi, because he knows she has a twin sister that was training to be a Jedi. How else would he know these things, right? So he's already plotting against the Jedi in a way that only really an insider would know how to do. So that's my initial thoughts on this Sith, is that it is a Jedi of some sort, and it could be one of those ways that they do away with
Hmm.
those words that are used in the Phantom Menace with not having seen a Sith in so many years and stuff like that.
Is it was actually just a rogue Jedi?
It was just a rogue Jedi, and maybe that's the path they'll end up going. Instead of calling it a Sith, it was just a bad Jedi. I think it's kind of a scapegoat that I don't want them to use. I would like for it to be a better, way of them explaining that to us, but I do think it is something they could do if they want to make sure they don't mess with that line.
Yeah, I feel like that's a bit of a stretch personally, if that was the route that they wanted to take, saying that it was just a rogue Jedi. I mean,
Hmm.
that's mostly what Sith are, essentially, uh, to an extent. Tapping
Yeah,
into the dark side and doing evil acts makes you essentially a evil Force user, Sith.
yeah.
So I don't know. I hope they don't try to get that as a scapegoat tactic.
Yeah, I don't either, but that's why, like I said, I hope that's not what they do, but I could kind of see them doing that. That's it.
Okay.
Disney can be a little lazy sometimes. We've definitely seen that with Star Wars. So I don't hope that's what they do, but I definitely think that card is on the table for that to be what ends up happening.
Okay. Sweet. Well, I'm definitely enjoying the mystery as well, and I do think there's going to be a good storyline. Um, I don't know if the Sith choosing Osha over May was maybe, or the Jedi choosing Osha over May also may have something to do with this. Like, that May had more probability of dying than Osha did, so they took Osha instead,
Hmm.
and left her to die. I'm curious if that's also maybe something that happened.
Yeah, I think we're gonna hear. I think we're due a flashback, and we talked about it a little bit. That we hope we actually get to see what happened, and it's not just something that's just talked about. I would like to actually see what happened then. I think that would be a lot more fun. It doesn't have to take a really long time. Give us a 30 or 45-second flashback of the village being caught on fire and the decisions that these Jedi made. Let us know if the Jedi were the ones that started the fire, as was kind of a thought process that we might have right now. Um, but I think that's going to be really fun to kind of discover as the show continues.
Yeah. So something we haven't talked about, that I know we talked about previously offline, was the way that the acolyte May, or not acolyte yet, but the way that May has killed these Jedi, is very, you like the way that that's done. You like the deception with the first killing, making the Jedi choose an innocent life over their own, distracting them, and then killing them, and then also making their own regrets or misfortunes in the past allow them to take their own lives. You enjoyed that. That is something I wanted to touch on and talk about online, is that I think they're doing good things there. I think that they're doing a good method of showing some of those things happen that are they're not just like this untrained mediocre force user is killing Jedi Knights, Jedi Masters. They are actually using some logic behind how she's getting the upper hand, how she's choosing to take on these Jedi. I do enjoy that. I'm very intrigued to see how she's going to try to kill a Jedi Wookiee, which I'm very excited to see. I think that's going to be a fun time, just to get to see our first Jedi Wookiee, and how she's going to try to attack that situation, because she's definitely not going to kill it without a weapon. So then that only leaves Soul, right?
Yes, and well, you just touched on something. She has been tasked by this Sith Lord. She has to kill these 4 Jedi, but one of them she does have to kill with her bare hands. Obviously, you just touched on it. And it is actually touched on in the show, too, by the guy that ends up making the poison for the second Jedi that she kills. He says, well, you're not going to kill a Wookiee with your bare hands. So, obviously, she's going to have to use a weapon for that. And I'm excited to see, like you touched on, I really do like the way that she's gone about killing these Jedi. Because I think we'd all be disappointed if really when these are, to be fair, I know I said this is when the Jedi are falling, they're getting arrogant and all this stuff, but this is also when they are at their strongest, as far as the timeline goes. So if she was just kind of killing them, just based off of pure combat, I think we would be a little bit upset about that. But like you said, making the first one decide, should I save my life or an innocent's life? I think that's a great way for a Jedi to be. Make them make that decision. And I think it also shows that while we might have some bad Jedi, or we might have some Jedi that did some bad things in the past, there are some that do still live up to a certain standard of putting others' lives before theirs, which is kind of what the Jedi do. So I did like that one. I did like the fact that they used a Jedi's potential previous actions. Again, we don't know that for sure, but I think it does kind of make sense if that's why the other Jedi was willing to drink the poison and kill himself that way. I think those are all definitely very logical ways that a Jedi would get taken out. And I like that they're not just letting her just go crazy, be ultra powerful, and take something crazy, to take them down. I really do like the way they're going with that. I think it's going to be really, really fun to see how this Wookiee is taken down. I don't think a Wookiee is going to fall, we saw a little bit at the end. The Wookiee looks like he's kind of by himself off on a planet. He's not at a Jedi temple. He's at like his own little house. So he's not going to have other interactions. He's not going to have to make himself decide between his life or another. I also don't think a Wookiee is going to feel as bad about things that they did in the past as we saw the one Jedi. So I'm going to be really interested to see what she does to kill this Wookiee. And I know it's one thing you said you think he might not even die.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that she's going to be incredibly successful during this. I think, we definitely see in the trailers, we see a red lightsaber flying through the woods. We see multiple Jedis with their swords drawn. I think we're going to definitely, we're going to see the Sith in action or whatever it is. I think it's a Sith. You said we may not see him. I think there's definitely we're going to see him in action taking on multiple Jedi. We see a force push in the woods that is just absolutely insanely strong, which does not seem like it could possibly be coming from May. We saw her push some dust around for a cheesy escape, but other than that, her force powers are definitely lacking. So I think maybe we'll see her fail at the Wookiee, and then for the rest, so tonight, I guess tonight's episode, I think we'll see her fail at trying to kill the Wookiee, and then we see the the actual Sith come in for the rest of the show. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I would like that because I really am excited to see this Wookiee. I don't want to see him for a few minutes of this first episode and him just be done. I really don't like that. And I also think it would be good to show that she is not going to have success with all these Jedi, because as much as I've liked the way she's gone about it, I do think there needs to be a time where she doesn't get what she wants and she doesn't figure it out, and she either has to come back and try again in a different way, or she does have to get help from her new master that we've yet to see. I am really excited. I do hope we get to see him. I think we haven't seen much of him, but the character design that we've seen in the trailers is really, really cool. And there was something about in that first episode when he does pull out that red lightsaber, it just looks really cool. And I'm so excited to see an actual lightsaber fight, because that's not something we've got to see yet. I think it could be really, really cool in this show. So I'm hoping what you think is right. I do hope that we don't see her kill this Wookiee, but I do think it is definitely on the table of it being a possibility.
Okay, yeah, I definitely think there's a possibility in it too. I just man, she just doesn't seem super skilled.
Not yet.
And not yet, but we'll see, right? It definitely could be something that we're just not seeing yet. That she has been incredibly skilled, but everything she's done to this point seems like kind of mediocre Jedi. Um, so she's gonna have to step up her game to not use. I mean, because like we said, she did not out strengthen or out fight any warrior,
No,
any
not
Jedi
yet.
yet. She got handled by Soul in the streets very easily. He didn't even draw his lightsaber on her. It seemed that I can't remember her name right now, but maybe Indara was Indara
Yeah,
the first name.
yep, yep.
Indara seemed to have no trouble with her at all either until she kind of played dirty. So it just seems I don't know. I don't see it coming. And I would really enjoy it to not be her that just like growing through this power. She's too unskilled to be taking on the challenge that is at hand and be successful.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too. But I do like the fights that we are getting. I do like the way she's done it, so I think they've handled that well. So moving on, we've talked a lot about some of the plots of the show and things like that, and things we like, things we don't like. Do you have a character in particular that has stood out to you that you've enjoyed being on the screen so far, and what about that character has really got you drawn to liking them?
And honestly, I don't really have any character. I guess my favorite character design so far, and maybe that's one of the reasons I'm having a little bit trouble just really enjoying the show, is I don't love any of the characters currently.
Yeah,
I thought Torben was very thoughtful, and it was a good look at a different type of Jedi, someone who can't deal with what he's done, and so he takes the monk's path of just being completely silent, and I'll deal with it my own way and not deal with it. And so he's kind of been my favorite character design. Not necessarily that I liked him the most, but I really liked what they did with his character. I thought that was a really cool different look at the Jedi that we really haven't seen before, except for like maybe Luke in episode 8, which I thought that was a terrible thing to do for Luke. However, if this is the course that they went with him, we don't know what Torben did. We don't know his downfall. We don't know what he did. But I really did like that. So that was pretty cool.
I think I agree with what you said about there not really being a standout character. I think a lot of people, if you had to pick one, absolutely had to. Obviously, I think Soul is probably the clear choice there, just because he really hasn't done a whole lot, but what he has done has been enjoyable to see. Now I am excited to see this Wookiee Jedi. I think he could easily become one of my favorite characters in the show, just because Wookiees are cool. We haven't really got to see a Jedi one. We've seen a very few of them in, like, we saw one in the Bad Batch, but we've not really got to see one in action. So I think he could be really cool. But I do like what you said about maybe it being one of our reasons we haven't really been drawn to the show, is because there's not just been that one standout character that we really love. I mentioned to you that I felt like Yord kind of seemed like a knockoff Anakin Skywalker in a way. He was kind of the guy that's just like, I have a lightsaber, let me just go in here and capture this guy, let me go do this or that. So I kind of like that they're kind of using a little bit of those themes. Obviously, he's not nearly as cool as Anakin, but I think some of those themes are there. And I mentioned that the one Padawan kind of reminded me of Ahsoka. She was a little more thoughtful. She kind of thought through the plan, and Soul was like, you know what, we're going to go with your idea over what Yord wanted to do. So I did like some of those things and some of those potential connections. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but I did like that they had those, at least in my mind.
So are you saying that Yord is your favorite, or did you say
Oh,
Soul is
no,
your
I
favorite?
would say Soul is my favorite, but I just like that they did have some, put in my mind, they had those connections, which I thought was cool.
Yeah. And I mean, it does definitely take I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know what the director's doing, right? The male Jedi is just brute force plunge through it. The female apprentice is thoughtful and can actually think and goes through it, playing on those gender stereotypes. So, um, yeah, that's something the director has going for her, and so probably one of the reasons it's getting shadow bombed is because she's been so outspoken about some of those ideals. Um,
Yeah, she definitely has. She definitely has.
Yeah, which we all love. We all love to just throw our personal ideals throughout broadly loved IPs.
Yeah. It's our favorite thing to do nowadays, it seems like. Um,
Absolutely.
but like you said, I think Torben was a cool character. I like what you said about him having, taking the monk's oath, the monk's way, falling on his own sword in a sense. And I think he could have been really cool because I did like what they did with him. I thought it was cool that he was doing the meditating. He couldn't be disturbed. He couldn't be touched. And again, I think that shows the power of this era of the Jedi is they were just very strong in the Force. They were very strong in their meditation and all that stuff. So again, those are some of the things that I think the show has done really well.
Yeah, and he definitely is probably my most unique character. Um, but like, and I enjoy what they did with him. He's clearly not my favorite, but I also really like the helper. I called him knockoff Ezra Miller. Um,
Oh yeah.
that was with May.
Yes, the one that made the poison.
The alchemist. Yeah, I thought he was pretty cool too. I thought they did a good job with him, and so who knows? I guess hopefully I'll get a favorite character, but currently I just don't have one.
Yeah, I think that's something that is important in Star Wars is there needs to be a character that is really fun and really cool to root for. And I really do think Soul could be that. Um, I just think we're only 2 episodes in, so it might be taking a little longer to get some of these characters developed and things. But overall, I don't mind where they're at right now. But I do hope that one of them grows to be my favorite.
Yeah, which I'm sure they will.
Yeah, I think that's pretty normal in any show just to take a little while to get going, especially when you have brand new characters. These are all characters we've never seen before, so we got to give them some time to grow and really establish who they are as a person. Now we've talked a little bit about the plot of everything. Overall, I think we both agree we enjoy where the story is going. And at the time of filming this, you touched on it that the newest episode is actually coming out tonight. I'll probably wait till the next day to watch it. But is there anything in particular you are hoping that we see in this next episode? I know at the end of the second episode, they gave us a little bit of the Wookiee Jedi is coming. We did get our first look at him. Do you hope that she just goes straight up to him and we just get right into the action? Or do you think we slow down a little bit and don't necessarily get right into the next Jedi on her kill list?
Well, something that they said at the end, right, was that Soul wanted to go after them, go protect the Wookiee. And the council immediately said, no, like, come back. We need to go with like deep thought and do this really, really well. Um, I think we're gonna slow down a little bit in this next episode, and I think that the Wookiee is going to die at the hands of the Sith, not at the hands of May,
Okay.
because the Jedi was slow.
Okay. So
So
you do think that we at least continue down the path of these Jedi just getting killed?
that's what I personally think. And then that might actually bring them a little bit higher level of urgency. But I mean, we have 8 episodes, so it's not like we have 6. We're not at the midway point yet. So maybe not. Maybe we don't get a Jedi killed in this one. Who knows?
See, that's kind of where I'm at. Like you said, we do have 8 episodes, and we're only going to be on episode 3 with this one. I definitely think if the whole premise of this show is for these 4 Jedi to be killed and for her to kind of earn her Sith name, I do think they need to slow down a little bit. I think we are definitely going to see Soul head back to the council, talk to them a little bit. Now, I'm interested to see, again, I've talked about this Wookiee Jedi a lot, but it did kind of seem like he was down his own path and wasn't necessarily maybe even a Jedi anymore. Maybe he was retired, in a sense, because he looked like he's by himself. They touched on it looked like it was a crashed ship in what he was living in. So maybe he just went back to his home planet, said, I'm done with the Jedi, I'm too old for this, I'm going to go home and relax. I kind of could see maybe the Jedi eventually getting to the point where they reach out to him and are like, hey, you might be next on this kill list. Maybe you should come talk to us so we can make sure you're safe and things like that. And then I think it's going to be really fun to see if the Wookiee is willing to do that, because I think Wookiees will be a little stubborn and don't think there's any chance that they could be killed like that. So I would really like to see that kind of play out. I'd like to see them talk about it. I'd like to see maybe we get to see this Sith again, which we've only got to see for a very few seconds. I'd like to see a little bit more of that storyline. I'd really love for them to touch on where he came from, or her. We don't know what it is yet because we've only seen a mask. So I hope that's kind of the direction we get with this next episode. Hope we slow down a little bit. I think we get some really good backstory in this next episode. Maybe we start to see what happened in that forest fire that killed Osha and May's family. I definitely hope they slow down with the Jedi killing, because like we said, 8 episodes, we're only on episode 3, and 2 of the 4 Jedi that were supposed to be set out to be killed have been killed. So I definitely hope they slow down a little bit, and hopefully this is a backstory-driven episode.
Yeah, I personally don't know if that's going to be the case, though. Even sitting here talking about it, they brought on Carrie Ann Moss for, to be a Jedi, put her front and center at the marketing, and then killed her off in the first episode. And I think they're really going to play on Soul kind of going rogue here after. I think what's going to happen is he's going to go back and have to talk, and that's going to have consequences because he wasn't able to act. And I think that's going to kind of drive him to be a little bit more loose canonish in this episode. So that's personally what I think is going to happen, but I don't know.
Now, do you think he actually does go back and talks to him, or do you think he just disobeys and goes ahead and goes to the Wookiee and talks to him and tries to keep him safe?
Oh, I think he clearly has to go back. He's not in a position to just disobey. He doesn't seem like that type of guy yet. I would say he probably just goes back.
So do you do think, though, we're going to get to the point where he starts kind of disagreeing with the Jedi way? I think we've already seen him kind of have that a little bit, especially they touched on it in that first episode, or it might have been the second episode, where, he's looking through that hologram of his previous Padawans, and, he's sitting there staring at Osha. We see the current Padawan come in and be like, oh, that's not good for you to have attachment. And he's like, well, you use these as learning experiences. So I think he already has a little bit of a problem with the way the Jedi handle things currently. I do like what you said about him potentially becoming a rogue, in a sense that he's not bad, he's not trying to kill Jedi, but he's starting to just act on his own intuition. And I think that is definitely a storyline they could have a lot of fun with, and kind of really see this character develop into someone completely different.
Yeah, no, that's kind of exactly kind of what I was thinking with it, is that he will start to mistrust the teachings, because I like what you touched on there with the attachments thing. He clearly does have some. I don't know if this is completely correct way of doing things, but yeah, it's interesting. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun. I really am liking the show. Now, we've touched on a little bit about how it's been review bombed, and how we don't necessarily agree with the ratings that it's been getting. I don't know if you have IMDb pulled up right now, but you did say it had about 13,000 one-star reviews, so I'm curious to see where that's sitting right now, right before this third episode.
4.3.
Okay.
Total, so it's got 13,000 1 star and 2,900 10 stars.
Okay, so hearing that right there, we like to give our little bit of a rating right now. Obviously, the show's not over. We're very early on in it. Do you have a number right now that you're kind of set on for those first 2 episodes of where you would have rated it if you were reviewing it on IMDb currently?
It's about a 6 right now for me. It's not done anything spectacular. It's not done anything wrong. That gets me lower than that. It's at a 6 with the potential to go higher. I don't really see it, like, if the show just goes where it's going and it kind of just keeps this. I don't know what I'm having issues with the pacing and the acting, kind of just like, I don't know. There's something there for me, and I know that's just weird, but just watching it, it just feels off. It's kind of like that uncanny valley. When you look at something, it's doesn't look right, but you can't say what it is. That's kind of where it's at for me. It's definitely at a 6 right now for me.
And I think that's a fair rating. Obviously, we touched on this kind of being that middle of the tier Star Wars show, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a 7 right now. I think I really enjoyed it, and I know I enjoyed it more than you did, with us being able to have our initial reactions. I really did enjoy it, and I'm really enjoying the story being told. Again, I'm loving that we're actually getting to see the Jedi in a way that I feel like they should be. Very strong, having good force abilities, using their lightsabers and stuff like that, I think is super fun, and it's something that I've really missed in Star Wars. As much as I love the Andors and that stuff of the world, Bad Batch, those things were kind of missing a lightsaber. And those episodes that we did get to see that stuff were so fun and so cool. And those are things that I'm really enjoying with this show so far. I do think this has the potential to. I think right now we talked about it a little bit. We probably have this show above Kenobi and Boba Fett. Do you still agree with it being above those shows? Obviously, we're only 2 episodes in, but right now, would you rate it above those 2 shows?
Oh, for sure. The only thing that could possibly keep Kenobi above it is what they did with Darth Vader, because I do love everything Darth Vader and Kenobi. I think it's awesome. But they fundamentally ruined my favorite Star Wars character in that show. And then Boba Fett was just a train wreck for me. So yeah, definitely doing better than those two.
Now, do you think this show has the potential to rival something? I don't think it's going to rival Andor just because these first 2 episodes. But I do remember you saying even you thought Andor started a little slow, and then once it got going, it really got going. Do you think this show has at least the potential to maybe rival something like The Mandalorian?
I think it definitely has the potential. It's going to have to do some good stuff. It's going to have to actually fulfill some of these promises, tell a good story, and kind of start finding its pace. It definitely has potential with 6 episodes left. We have a lot of story to be told, a lot of things to explore. It definitely could get there. I'm not holding my breath on it, but I think it definitely has potential.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too. I think really I don't know that it's gonna touch Ahsoka and Andor, but again, Andor did start a little slower, and then once it got going, it was really really good. So maybe this show kind of has something similar like that, to where once it gets going, it gets really really good. One thing I do wish with these Star Wars shows, and this one's a little bit better because it is 8 episodes. I do wish they'd give them a little more time sometimes to tell a story, because I think sometimes we can get caught up in rushing through. We only have 6 episodes. We got to tell a story really quickly. I think we see that in Marvel a lot. They get these 6 episode seasons, and we're just like, oh, this could have been better if we had time to really explore these characters and stuff. So I think that is one thing that this has going for it. We do have a good solid 8 episodes. I would like to have seen that be around 10. I think 10 is a really good sweet spot for a lot of seasons for shows. Just give them a couple extra episodes to maybe tell the story a little bit better. But I think this is a good step in the right direction. And I agree. I think it does have a chance to match, potentially a Mandalorian or something like that.
Yeah. And, Mandalorian was absolutely incredible and had just the cool vibes. I'm not getting the cool vibes from this show.
Yeah.
But, the Mandalorian definitely did fall off, and it definitely, it can be beat. It's not like it's like the Golden Crown, Golden Grail anymore. And even Andor, it's not the best show ever. I will say, Andor, I would stand out as just good TV in general. Mm-hmm. Like not just great Star Wars. It is just a great show in general. Which is one of the things that I really like about that, is that, I kind of like, I watch a lot of content, and I don't just watch Star Wars. I don't just watch Marvel, but the shows that I really love from Marvel and from Star Wars, such as Andor, Daredevil, Punisher, they're just great content shows. Like they'll go head to head with anything, and even if somebody's like, well, it's just a superhero thing or it's just a Marvel thing. No, like these stories and this medium can be used to rival the greatest of entertainment. And so that's kind of what, like, I kind of even hate rating it against other Star Wars, because they have the potential to go ahead and, be better than everyone else. Just be better than any other medium. Like, you have amazing, unique, creative content that you can absolutely explore, just some absolutely incredible things. And so I really wish that I didn't have to be like, well, it's middle of tier Star Wars. I wish it was just good TV. And I hope that's where this one ends up.
I think you touched on it with, the reason I'm comparing it so much to, having the chance to be as good as The Mandalorian is because we do both agree that the last season of The Mandalorian was kind of a step back as far as what we had wanted from The Mandalorian. So I think that's why it's kind of got the potential to catch up to those. But you also touched on it. Andor is so good because it doesn't need to be tied to Star Wars. You take the Star Wars IP away from it and just say this is Andor, it's still a really good TV show. Same thing with Daredevil, Punisher. Those are just good TV shows that don't need that Marvel IP to carry them. They did a lot on their own that they don't necessarily need that. I don't think that is going to be the case with this show. I know we're only 2 episodes in. I do think the Star Wars IP is doing a lot of the heavy lifting currently. And again, we're only 2 episodes in, so that could change. It could end up just being a really, really good TV show overall. But initial thoughts, I do think this is going to be one of those shows that is kind of carried by that Star Wars IP a little bit.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do too. But hopefully, I mean, I'm not just being a negative Nancy this episode. I do think they have potential here, and I hope they actually get through it.
Yeah, and I'm super excited. Like we just talked about, there is a new episode airing tonight, and I'm going to be super excited to talk about it. Obviously, that's something you guys can look forward to hearing in the future. We're obviously going to touch on every episode like we normally do, but we have some other stuff we're going to be talking about in the future. So it's going to be really, really fun. But I think this is really exciting just to have Star Wars back on our TVs. A lot of the time we're kind of missing some stuff to talk about. We've seen us do our top 5 videos, which we have an absolute blast doing, and it seems like a lot of you guys also enjoy listening to those. But it is really nice just to have another subject to talk about.
Yeah, the rankings are crazy fun for me. I love ranking stuff. But yeah, it is fun to kind of break down new stuff, new content. I even got to watch Hitman last night. I know we tried to watch it 2 nights, but got to see that. That was fun. And then I watched The Flash for the first time today because I was sick. So it's been fun to kind of get some new stuff going around. So
yeah, it's always fun to have some good shows and stuff to watch. And I think Acolyte's going to be fun to watch. It's definitely something I'm looking forward to. It's not something I'm dreading to watch just because I have to watch it for the sake of the podcast. So that's good at least. And I'm just excited to see where they go with the story. I love talking about it with you. It was super fun getting to watch it in person. I think that's something you can kind of take for granted sometimes, is getting to watch something with somebody that also enjoys it as much as you do. So that's really fun. We were able to break it down right after the episode aired, and that's going to be something I think we get to do in the future. And I'd love to do maybe like a live reaction after an episode of a show one day after I get moved down there or something. Maybe we could just hop right into a podcast right after and give our really early thoughts, or maybe that's even something we could do exclusively on one of our social media platforms, is give like a little quick video on there to let you guys know what we're thinking about the shows. But if you guys did enjoy this episode and you guys enjoy the Acolyte, again, make sure to reach out to us on those social media platforms. Let us know what you guys thought about it. Let us know if there's some things you like, some things you didn't like. We absolutely love hearing your guys' reactions and your guys' opinions on things. Ultimately, that community-driven podcast is what we're going for, because I think that just makes everything better. Everybody can enjoy it and have a good time. We're all already fans, so we might as well enjoy it together. So again, make sure you guys check us out on X and Instagram. It's been really fun getting to interact with those of you on there that have done it. But Zane, did you have any other closing remarks on the Acolyte, before we wrap up this podcast? Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Or do you like what we've talked about so far?
No, I think that's pretty good. I think that's a great intro to it. And I think that we definitely have a lot to talk about in the future, especially with where this is going, whether it picks up or slows down. It's going to be a blast. But yeah, just very excited for what the future holds. And we got a lot of stuff that will be exciting to see in the upcoming months.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And like Zane said, he was able to watch The Flash for the first time. He was able to watch Hitman. So those would be something you guys can expect him to break down in the future episode. I don't necessarily know that I will watch The Flash, but maybe I will watch Hitman, because that's actually something we did try to watch this weekend, but it ended up being too late. Or, something always happens, when you're hanging out and having fun. You can get caught up in conversations, which, if you guys wouldn't believe it, we like talking, that's why we have a podcast. So it's fun to do, but it's going to be fun to hear him talk about The Flash. I know it's been out for a while, but I think he's going to have some good opinions on it. I know it wasn't the best received movie, but he told me a little bit about it, so I think it'll be fun to hear that. But guys, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Weekly Fix. We hope you guys did enjoy it. We hope you guys enjoyed our breakdown of Acolyte. Again, if you guys have some things you want to talk about, or you want us to talk about, or some opinions you had about the show, again, reach out to us on X or Instagram. We love talking to you guys on there, and we're always very interactive and quick to respond. So again, reach out to us on there. But guys, that is going to do it for this week. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure to rate the podcast. That's not something we've really talked about on here, but it is a big help if you guys go ahead and give us that rating on there, and be honest on there. If there's something you think we could improve on, leave us a comment or anything like that. Any advice would be great. But thank you guys so much for listening, and we can't wait to see you in the next one.